Hey guys, how's everything going? Up right in the middle of watching Kim Basinger. Kim Basinger and movie My Stepmother is an Alien. Let's stop this music before they get me in trouble over it. And we'll talk to you guys a little bit. Today I want to talk about, let's see, a good topic to talk about is my foot. I talked about it before and how I lost my toe, how I developed diabetes being here in the Philippines, how I spent 16 years here eating cakes and cookies and sugars and sodas and birthdays, and I got 4 kids here, and birthdays, cakes, ice creams, going out to eat, things like that. And over the years, being inside my body, I didn't realize how much weight I was gaining. So, 16 years is a long time to gain weight and to get that diabetes started and getting that diabetes going. Developed diabetes, developed ulceral, actually outside fat where my belly was hanging down, and then I developed inside my stomach fat, inside the muscles fat, visceral fat, so to where my stomach was sticking out quite a bit, and I was sluggish, wasn't able to do stuff. And one day, years, I knew I had diabetes. I was taking my pill, and I figured, as long as you take your pill, and as long as you take your blood pressure pill, and and drink your sodas and eat your cakes and stuff, but as long as you take that pill, you're all right. And boy, was I wrong. I started out, my feet used to swell, and everybody'd say, "Hey, your diabetes is causing your feet to swell." So I really didn't, so it was, one of those things. I went to see my doctor, and my doctor had said, "Hey, you need to watch your weight, your diabetes." Yeah, my whole attitude was, diabetes. Well, one day my foot started swelling, and I looked at the back of my foot, back about where my heel is, and just a little soft spot. So how I do, I just push on a little bit. Next thing you know, my foot exploded and busted, and big hole in there, and a couple pints of blood came out, which is a lot of blood. The whole floor was coated in blood, and I was like, I don't think that can be good, I don't think that's normal. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Hey, you lost a couple pints of blood there." And I said, "Yeah," and they stitched me, or they didn't stitch it up, they might have stitched it. They did something there and bandaged it up and told me to go home, follow up with a vein doctor or artery doctor, and gave me some bandages to put on it. So I went home. I was like, okay, go home, and they said you need to go follow up with a doctor, about your diabetes. And I was like, diabetes. So I just continued to drink sodas. I started drinking diet sodas, but I drink 2-liter bottle of diet soda. And I'd still eat cakes and stuff, because I thought, I'm taking my medicine, take that pill in the morning, eat a cake in the daytime. And the vein doctor told me, you got bad veins and bad arteries, stenosis in them, so I attributed the swelling to that, and one day my other foot, not the foot that exploded, but the other foot, my big toe, started getting red. Right about where my nail was on there, just started getting red, and I kind of thought, and swelling. I thought, you know, that can't be good. That's not normal. Well, anyways, in the next couple days, it was going from red to purple and swelling, and I thought, you know, that can't be good. So I thought maybe I was getting the blood, you know, since my feet was swelling, maybe the blood was building up around that big toe and causing the toe. So anyways, I didn't realize on the bottom of my toe, bottom of my big toe was like blood blister, sort of. In fact, they developed two of them. One was average size blood blister, and the other one was a little smaller one, kind of off from it. In another day or so, it got to where it was, I pushed on the back of it and it busted, and blood had come out. And you know, I'm going to leave this side, I'm going to leave some pictures up here so you guys can see for yourself. Don't blame me if you get sick and throw up. But anyways, you know, blood, pus, whatever came out of there. And I thought, you know, that something's, no, that can't be good. So the front of my toe where my nail was, you know, got soft, and you know, I pushed it. It was like pushing a marshmallow. It was, and it busted and blood come out. And I thought, you know, I have the same thing on my other foot that I got on this foot, except for I wasn't paying attention to the bottom of my foot, the blood blister that had busted. And I kind of bandaged it up, wrapped it up and stuff, and I went to the doctor. In a couple of days I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, I went to my doctor, and I told my doctor that my toe is red and stuff like that, and I said the bottom of it had a hole, kind of a hole in it, and I said, you want to see? And he said, no, I don't need to see, I can smell it. I can smell your big toe from here. So what had happened is my toe, I had got a diabetic ulcer on the bottom of my toe. So a couple of them, but I had got one of those, and it had got gangrene in it, from what I was told. And it just started to die, to rot from the inside. And probably if I'd have known and I'd have caught it early, maybe they could have done something. But my diabetes was so bad that they told me that I had to see a specialist about getting admitted into the hospital. So I went home, went back the next day to another doctor. And this doctor was a surgeon. He said, well, you know, if you want, we could try to save it, but I don't think it's going to save. There's no use. That toe's gone, so we need to cut it off. And at that point, I was kind of scared, kind of upset, because here I am in the Philippines, no money, no insurance, no nothing. And I do have experience being in there before, that you have to pay before you can get a medical procedure. You have to pay before you go into a hospital, you have to pay before you get out of a hospital. So I didn't have a clue about going on, except for I was told you need to show up at the hospital. You need to go ahead and have your toe cut off. And I did. I showed up. It was a Saturday, and I went in there, and they wanted 40,000 pesos, which is, rounded off to about 5,000 per 100. So you're talking 5, 10, 15, 20. So for $800 they wanted. I think it was 800. Somewhere around in there. To be admitted in the hospital. And I had to get that, and I paid it. Waited the whole day to get a room. And I ended up getting a semi-private room. I guess it was a room, and I was somebody on the other side of the room that was there, and there was a curtain separating us. And he, I think, was in there for the same thing I was in there for. I think he had diabetes. And I didn't have a clue what was going on. I know the nurses and stuff kept going in there and checking my blood pressure and my blood sugar and all that stuff. And they had said that my diabetes was very high. And they said that a lot of times is caused by, the problem in your toe. You need to get your toe cut off. That a lot of that can cause it. Trauma or whatever it is. So I had to get these injections in my stomach. First time I ever got injections in my stomach, and hopefully it'll last. But anyways, my doctor had come in. The surgeon doctor had come in, and he had told me, let's schedule to get it cut off. Now, my first thought was, well, let's go in here now. You got your machete ready, and we can get it. And I thought, you go in there and sit up, and the doctor cuts it off and throws a couple stitches in it, and you go home. But it don't work that way. There's a procedure to it, because there's a lot of veins and arteries and tendons and things in your feet that require surgery. And a couple days, it took a couple days, and I went in there to my surgeon. Went into a room. There was probably about 8 or 9 people in the room, and I got up on the gurney, and they had the operating table prepared, and I had laid down. There was an anesthesiologist in there, and he said, we're going to, give you this anesthesiology stuff. And I said, am I going to be put out? He said, well, you'll be sleeping, and then you'll be awake, and, it's kind of groggy in and out of it. So, I was like, okay. And, they gave it to me. It took a few minutes to work, but I was, I was out. And I did wake up right about the time the doctor had cut my toe off, and had put it in this, I don't know, bowl, plate, whatever. And I was looking at it. I was out of it. I was still looking at it like, hey, is it a boy or a girl? So anyways, I was just happy to, at that moment, being out of it, I was just kind of happy to have my toe cut off. Because if you'd have seen the way it looked, and you will, because I'm going to put some pictures up. So I kind of dozed back off a little bit, and I kind of looked, and as they were tugging, and they were operating on my toe and stitching my big toe, and that was really the only time I actually saw my foot for a few days, because they had bandaged it up, stitched it up, bandaged it up, and the anesthesiologist, he was, are you sure you wanted to see it? And I was, I'm okay, I'm fine, and I went back to my room. It had took an hour for the anesthesiology mojo, whatever that stuff is, to wear off. Another half hour for them to get somebody to take me back to my room. But I ended up, going back to my room and resting. They kept me on IV. They kept me stuff. It didn't really hurt. So the next day, my doctor had come there, and he said everything went fine, and the surgeon showed up that next day, and I was like, he said, in a few days, give it a week or so, and you can go home. So I was aggravated after a few days of being in there. They kept coming up asking me for more money, and I'm like, I'm in here, and I thought whenever I got finished, they were going to bill it up, and PhilHealth was going to cover some, and I was going to have to pay the rest. But no, they wanted money up front again. They were like, the doctors, the nurses and stuff don't really want to do anything, until you pay some more money. So I spent about 4 or 5 more days in there, and kept having to get injections in my stomach, because they wasn't going to let me go until they got my diabetes under control. So when I got out, they billed me, and it wasn't, I think maybe $6,000, $6,500 for the whole procedure. Having to pay after PhilHealth covered some, and this is what I had to pay. Now, while I was in there, they didn't want to let me out, so security guy kept going in there and looking, and Barry's still in here. And I was thinking to myself of going in that bathroom. I was on like the 2nd or 3rd floor, but I can shimmy out that window and down that drain pipe and get out of here. I was so aggravated, but ended up going home. And I was scared, because the doctor said they normally have to cut people's legs off. Not just the toe, but the whole leg. And after that, I was scared, so he said, get that weight under control. So I started dieting about November. And I started doing OMADs, 1 meal a day. And I started just eating eggs, scrambled eggs, and sardines 1 time a day. Now I may eat scrambled eggs and sardines, and once in a while I'll eat a couple more eggs at the end of the day, or a cucumber, or if there's any bacon in there. So I did my homework, and I started researching and finding out what you can eat and what you can't eat. So I cut out all the rice, sodas, sugars, pastas, no more oatmeals, no more starches, and very little carbs. And I've lost a lot of weight. And now this is from maybe in the middle part of November is when I really got into it. And now this is July, middle part of July, and I've lost a significant amount of weight. To where I feel like if I give it a year and see how much weight I lost, then. And so here's my advice to you guys. And don't eat starches, don't eat sugars. Cut that sugars out and them starches out. Before you get diabetes, cut the sugar out, cut the starches out. Cut all that stuff out of your diet, or else you'll end up in the same situation I am. Now there's people that say, oh, you can get your toe cut off and live a normal life, and you don't lose your balance when your toe's cut off. This don't happen and that don't happen. And there's no such thing as, phantom pain, phantom toe, which is, even though I don't have a toe, I still feel my toe. And I don't feel it like when I was 4. I feel it like right before they cut it off, that pain it was in it. So there, you get phantom pains, and you also lose your balance. There's several times that I've been walking out there and I've almost fell down. In fact, I did fall down right out there. You get dizzy spells. Diabetes will cause dizzy spells, and lack of balance will cause dizzy spells. Now, I don't care. Get a doctor who's had diabetes and had his toe cut off, and let him say, hey, ain't no such thing as getting dizzy spells and toe cut off and falling down. But you don't see any of them telling you. It's just other people telling you. So my advice to everybody is, cut out the sugar, cut out the starches, and cut out the carbs. You'll live a much happier life. And I'm still got a stomach on me after a year, or close to a year. But I'm able to get through the door. I'm able to raise up. I'm able to, stand there at a urinal and pee and see what's going on down there without, having to take a guess where it's at. So anyways, that's all I got to talk about. I've been going on for 22 minutes about stuff that I've talked about before, and I'll probably end up watching this My Stepmother's an Alien, Kim Basinger, and I forgot his name now. Well, anyways, I going to finish watching that. Seen it 100 million times, but 100 million and one ain't gonna hurt. Take care, everybody. God bless, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Subscribe.